sauna, hekilunta. Guess who's coming to sauna, hekilunta.
So hello all, my name is Eero, Kilpi, and I'm with the North American Sauna Society. I can see here, Sam, what's going on with you?
Hey, Sam here with the Upper Bench. We're talking today with a couple individuals. Risto, what do you know?
Oh, not much new here. Just enjoying our sauna after it's been rebuilt, looking at a new stove. So we'll see if that materializes one of these days. But it's starting to get cold here, so it's a cold plunge every morning in our household, which I'm enjoying that.
That sounds cold. So we have Robbie Hammond and Adam Tanaka here with us, and they both work for Therme. First of all, how do you pronounce Therme in America?
If you don't make fun of how we say sauna, we won't make fun of how you say Therme. However you like.
Therme rhymes with Burma, you know, that's the
Therme. Yeah, okay, great. So you guys are, if I may start here, you guys have announced that you're going to do some fantastic things around sauna, also in North America. So what's going on?
Yeah, the goal of Adam and I are part of a larger company called Therme Group, but our division is Therme U.S, and our goal is to open 10 Therme in the U.S. in the next 10 years.
Wow.
And a bit of context on what those is. I mean, in my view, the best way to describe it is we're bringing back bathing on the scale of the ancient Roman baths. So these are facilities with anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 people a day moving through them. You have pools, you have saunas, steam rooms, but there's also restaurants, there's art, and there's activities for people of all ages. So we really, we take this seriously as a kind of community infrastructure, which is going back to the origins of bathing, not just hundreds of years ago, but thousands of years ago, as the place where people came together, morning, noon, and night. And I think in today's world where there's technology and screens, this mission is even more urgent than ever.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that surprises people is the scale of these facilities. Our smallest facility is about 400,000 square feet, and our largest facility is 800,000 square feet. So it's more on the scale of a stadium, a small airport, and that's why we like to think of these as well-being infrastructure. And going to Adam's points, that's really the role that the Roman baths played. I think sometimes when people hear Roman baths, they think it was just about bathing or getting clean, where, as y'all know, that's one aspect, but the more important aspect is there's the health benefits, which is now becoming increasingly popular. But as Adam said, I think the most important part is the social aspect, reconnecting with yourself, but also reconnecting with other people, your family, and then people getting to know other people. I think there's no better way to get a connection with someone than to sit in the heat with them.
And one of the things I love so much about the bathing experience is you can have it at so many different scales. I mean, I've listened to a lot of your episodes. You have a great podcast, and I feel like a lot of what you discuss are almost like the neighborhood scale, or maybe even the domestic scale sauna, which is more of a private or community level experience. And what Therme aspires to do is complement those smaller locations with something that is operating at the scale of a whole metropolitan area. In our most recent facility, which is in Bucharest, it's actually become the biggest attraction in the whole country. So in Romania, it's functioning as even a sort of national civic, attraction.
And so so you have a number of locations already open overseas. How did they function? How did they make it through the pandemic? I'm curious about that.
Adam, you want to take that one, or do you want me to?
Sure. I mean, during the pandemic, all of our facilities in Europe were closed for anywhere between 12 and 18 months, but that wasn't unusual for, large commercial attractions. One of the things that we've seen coming out of the pandemic is a huge surge in visitation. So we've actually seen an increase in visitation, even an increase in the time that people are spending, the amount of money that people are spending. So it's clear that there's something about this combination of accessible health and affordable health. And in our European facilities, it's like 30-40 euros, for a ticket, sometimes for a whole day, so it's pretty affordable. And the combination of that with something that brings people together in physical space is clearly just driving, a huge level of interest. In terms of the origins, the origins of the concept are in Germany and come out of a sort of German bathing tradition of large body temperature pools. And of course, there are a lot of saunas as well. But in Germany, as you might know, people bathe in the nude. So actually, our German facilities haven't gotten that much tourist footfall. But our most recent facility in Romania has become a huge tourist attraction. You have people from Israel, from Italy, from France, even the UK now, because of cheap flights within Europe. It's really become a big attraction and is pulling in people from much further away. And so that's what's given, I think, Therme Group the confidence about delivering this concept in places where there might not be as much of a homegrown bathing culture. That's people's perception of the US. We can discuss and debate whether that's true, because I don't actually think that's true. I think there's a lot of bathing cultures here, but maybe not as obvious as in Germany or in other parts of Europe.
This is.
Oh, go ahead, Eero.
I was just going to say that's very interesting what you just said, because I have to be careful that I don't sound like a broken record. But we were talking about health benefits a little and the social aspects of things and like I still feel that there's a misunderstanding, and so you sort of like misunderstanding what a sauna actually is. So you have to educate people as well. And I'm sure that you're going to be, and that's why we are in this boat together, because you're gonna be able to give that access to people, so that we can say that if you and we'll talk about your saunas soon, but so that we know places where there are real saunas and not these boxes that provide you that one and done experience.
Yeah, and I was looking at, I wasn't super familiar with your work, so I was looking at it yesterday. And I liked that you guys had that focus on affordability. Like, I really appreciated that. I went to Chicago Sweat Lodge. I don't know if either of you have been there before. It's a Ukrainian or, Eastern European Russian style banya in Chicago. It is wonderful. I've been there several times. It's about a 5-hour drive for me. But, it's like $40, and then you can just hang out there all day. And I think that's a wonderful experience, affordable, it's not like $150 to get into a place like that, or it's not like $80 for an hour. So I like your guys' price point.
Yeah. I mean, the way I like to think of it is almost like a well-being Disneyland. And and the way people treat it, it's almost like a staycation. Because people stay 4 to 5 hours is the average stay. And so, but it saves a lot of money, is better for the environment, than going to Florida. But you can not only get a sauna, but then you can sit under a palm tree in the middle of winter and, get a drink in the pool. Eero, one of my favorite things that I remember when we first talked is I was talking about all the health benefits is one of the things that drew me to saunas and therme, but you pointed out your favorite thing afterwards is to have, I can't remember what it was, a beer and a cigar, or have a drink and a cigar. And that's always stuck with me. I've told that story a lot because that's also a kind of wellness. It's a kind, you're getting the health benefits, but it's also about just enjoying life. And I think most people don't come to therme because, oh, I'm doing something that's healthy for my body, that's why I'm coming. They're coming because it's fun. They're coming to be together with friends. They're coming to like enrich their lives, but at the same time they're getting those health benefits. And so that's why I think it really sets it apart from all those things you should do in life.
Really interesting, because the origins of the therme concept, it was an architect in Germany who had a lot of experience building actually medical facilities. And so one of his obsessions was ventilation and creating big environments that were healthy for people. But his biggest design philosophy was, I do not want to build places that feel medical. So when you go in a therme, it's glass, it's light, there's trees, it feels celebratory and festive, like an occasion. It does not feel at all like, there's obviously another tradition of bathing in Europe, especially of sanatoria and these sort of more clinical environments. And every decision that is made in a therme is to not have that feeling of being in a sort of clinical or medical space. And I think one of the other things that the concept has done really well over the past 20 years is really explored ways to bridge wellness with entertainment. So, you know, there's the whole aufguss culture in Europe of sauna performance and sauna theater. And I think this is a place where Therme has already done a huge amount of innovation and experimentation to bring people who would never see themselves sitting in a sauna for 2 hours because of the fun aspect, the music, the costumes, the aromas. You know, you see a lot of people when you visit our facilities who I don't think are sauna gurus, but because there's something accessible about it, they are able to, you know, spend huge amounts of time. And some of these aufguss performers, you know, have become kind of like celebrities. People like follow them around and want to see their shows. And I think in the US, as we bring this slightly maybe less familiar concept of sauna into, you know, urban locations, these kinds of immersive experiences, I think, are going to be really important for bringing new customers in who might not be familiar with sauna, who might say, why would I sit in a box for, you know, 20 minutes with staring at the wall? You know, we know how lovely that is and how restful that is and how good that is for mindfulness. But I think it's going to be a gateway drug of sorts that will then open people's perception to, wow, there's this whole world of sauna that I didn't even realize existed.
So are you going to have the aufguss option at all your places? That's actually very important information for us at NAS, because that's like, you know, we are coming into this aufguss thing, and you know, everyone probably knows by now that it doesn't have to do anything with Northern Europe. You know, it's a German and mid Europe kind of a thing. But like you pointed out, this is a win-win situation, because even though it's like theater and you know, it's like an event in itself, but it brings you the real sauna at the same time. You know, it's like maybe a little less nudity here in the U.S. than compared to the Central Europe, but yeah, no, that's great.
And for those that do like to stare at the wall or maybe just have a conversation with their neighbor, is this like aufguss, you know, the towel spinning and sense, is that a 24/7? And or is there an option to not do that?
No,
it's more
intense. And that's what all the
go for it, Robbie.
All the facilities, you just have a schedule. I mean, most of the time there's not an aufguss in their schedule. It's been really interesting in Romania. Romania has a bathing culture going back, but you know, most of the people, you know, when they opened Therme, they didn't build that many saunas as they did in Germany, because they weren't sure, and people didn't come, and no one came to the aufguss. And it really took years for that to build up, and now it's the most popular part. They're doing a big expansion, and the most important part of the expansion is more saunas. So, you know, I think it's, you know, and that's really heartening, because a lot of people say, okay, well, you know, saunas are coming back in the U.S., but that culture is not that big. And so I think Romania was a great test for us, you know, that's outside of a German or a Northern European countries where, you know, that culture is so deep. But I think people are really, and in New York, it's really taking off. I mean, here, saunas are opening up. One of the things that is has ruined some of my sauna experiences was going to Finland and going into an authentic sauna. And now I always say, why is the stove so high? Why is there no ventilation? You know, why? So, you know, I think that's why I think what y'all are doing is so important, is most of what people think, they think they've been to a sauna, you know, in the US, but the reality is they haven't. And to me, the worst part and the worst trend is infrared saunas. I don't have anything against infrared therapy. It's not but you know, they think that's a sauna. And, you know, and Eero, that was the thing you helped me do, is to tell people, you know, correct them nicely, but that's infrared therapy. But if you're doing it because of all those health studies that you've read about, that's not done on infrared saunas. They don't have those studies yet. I think those studies are much smaller. All the studies that people have read about, and you know, you hear about on blogs and podcasts, those are on sauna, not, and a real one, a real, hot one, not sort of that warm sauna you might have in your gym.
Well, and experientially, they're very different, and that's the thing that most people don't understand. I see people asking all the time online, should I get traditional? Should I get infrared? I heard about it on a podcast, So how would you describe the difference between those two if someone was trying to sort that out?
I think it's the kind of heat, and and again, that's why I think the two things that really struck for me is having that heat lower. I'm used, most saunas in the U.S., it's hot on your head and cold on your feet. And so that's just not a uniform experience. And you don't want it as hot. It's actually more uncomfortable because it's all on your head. And then most of them don't have ventilation, you see. Or they have one, they don't have one at the top and one at the bottom. And so, I used to get headaches always when I love saunas, but I always got a headache. And I thought it was the sauna's fault, that it was just the heat gave me a headache. Now I realize it was just because there was no ventilation and it was a whole bunch of carbon dioxide in those rooms. So those are the two things that I, really noticed, and it made me aware.
Did you use the smoke sauna in Finland?
I did. And of course that I hesitate to tell people about it because it's so few people in the US are ever going to get to do it. But, that was by far and away the most. And when people say, well, why was it different? Because I think it's smoky in the smoke sauna. I said, you don't really know where the heat came from. There's a little bit of a smell. And I couldn't really describe why it felt so different afterwards. And, I guess there's some science about the ions in the air, but all I could report is just that I came out of it feeling different. It was the most sort of deepest kind of experience.
Yeah, Risto, not to get too geeky, I apologize. I can't help myself, but Risto Elema told me to read a chapter from the Sauna Studies book. It's a collection of the presentations at the 1974 Sauna Congress. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Eero. But he talked about the black walls in a Savu sauna absorbing a little bit more radiant heat and giving just a little bit more back. And I thought that was an interesting element. And as well as the darkness inside, you have to experience it.
One thing I would say, though, that makes me excited about bringing this concept into the US is I actually think the American consumer is more educated about saunas than we give them credit for. And I think there's a few trends that have really been taking off in the past couple of years that have been interesting. One is, in most major metros now, you have 2 to 3 Korean spas. And it's a different type of sauna. You lie on the ground, you wear these clothes, the heat comes from the floor often. So it's a very different experience of sauna. I wouldn't even call it sauna, I'd call it sauna or whatever. There's probably a specific Korean word. But when I tell people about Therme often in the US context, people say, oh, this reminds me of a Korean spa. And many of the largest ones have 10 to 15 different saunas with charcoal, with clay, with crystals. So the idea of moving between these different heat experiences in a social setting where you're spending an extended period of time is already quite familiar to people. And one of the things I find amazing, if you go to a Korean spa, I've been to some in Atlanta now, in New York, in DC, they pull in a really diverse crowd. So it is not just catering to Korean.
That's true.
And, certain entrepreneurs, I think, have discovered the mass market potential of this concept that integrates kind of food and beverage, a little bit of drinking, and then sort of bathing and sauna. And then I think the other trend is there is obviously this sort of cold plunge, sort of, longevity trend that is moving as well. Sometimes it's on the infrared side, but sometimes it is real saunas. And I think, the US has always been a place where there's been a big focus on fitness and enhancement and people looking for new ways to improve their health. And so I see that as also something that has a lot of synergy with our vision and with sort of European bathing culture. That's an American homegrown, trend.
Yeah, and we love a good gadget.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's all true. But coming back to that, like Adam, you came to, I was interviewing this lady, Emma O'Kelly, in New York City, in Manhattan, about a month ago, maybe, in front of a live audience, and Adam was there too. And so this British lady was talking about her like road to sauna, and it's like the problem, and again, this is where you guys hopefully, you know, we have to wait a couple of years with a lot of you know, places, but this is where people like you come along, because the gym sauna experience is what most people only know of, and like Emma told that you know, she did use sauna, but she didn't like it. She didn't like, you know, sauna was not for her. And but obviously, you know, it was like Robbie says, you know, it was this not unventilated space, you know, with the you know, with all the heat in your head and cold feet and whatnot. But anyway, so it took like a personal like evolvement for her to realize the real authentic sauna, and kind of whatever words you use, they're going to be, you know, they're going to be watered down in the process. All of a sudden, an authentic sauna can be heated with, you know, infrared whatever steam, you know, so you have to be very clear on the experience part.
Well, I think it's about understanding the customs and the rituals and experiencing it in a social way, which gives meaning to the experience. I think one of the reasons why people find gym saunas so dull is they have no meaning, they have no symbolism, they have no function. I mean, there's usually not even a cold plunge, you know, so it just feels like something that's been stuck on in the side of a gym without any real, you know, narrative for why you're being there. And I think one of the things that's so wonderful about the so many different traditions of sauna, whether it's in Finland or in Ukraine and Russia or in, you know, Korea or wherever it may be, it's very integrated into community life. And there's different customs of, you know, who you go with and at what time of day you go with. And you may be certain times of year, you even go with different types of people. And it's like a pub or a church or a, you know, a community gathering place. And certainly saunas in a gym, you know, on a place, I don't think, where, you know, a lot of community is happening.
Yeah, you're still seeing a lot of people in there. They've got their AirPods in, or, you know, they've got their, you know, they're in all their workout gear and they're stretching out, you know, taking up way too much space. And yeah, everybody's just a little annoyed. And to top it off, it's probably not a great sauna. So I can definitely understand why people give it a shot and then say, this is sitting right next to a bathroom in the locker room, and you know, I can hear people showering, you know, or you know, changing, doing whatever, you know, get these things out of the locker room, get them out in the open for everybody to enjoy the right way. Yeah, very excited to see what you guys can do with that.
I mean, I think one of the other things we're excited about, and I remember this was discussed at Emma's book talk, was also saunas as a canvas for design, creativity, and art. I mean, you know, what's cool about a sauna is you basically have a captive audience of people who are there for, you know, 15 minutes. And there's so much, I think, amazing potential for sound experiences and sensory experiences and visual experiences. Again, particularly for those who might not see themselves as regular sauna goers, or who only associate a sauna as this kind of slightly dull wooden or gray box. And that's a place where Therme is currently investing a lot of energy into what are new ways of pushing the boundaries of what a sauna experience can even be, while at the same time ensuring there's also that classical sauna experience, which is about quiet, which is about nature, which is about introspection, which is, you know, not about whiz-bang gadgetry, but about elementally being with your body. So
yeah, and I think people have different, you know, everybody's going to have a different kind of way to connect with that or interest in that, you know, like you described it as the Disneyland for spa or sauna things. That's not going to connect with me. I have kind of have my sauna styles like grumpy 80-year-old Finnish farmer guy, you know? So if I go to one and I'm looking for like solid heat and steam as that grumpy 80-year-old Finnish farmer guy, what should I look for? Like, where do I go? What do I check out when I go there?
I mean, and that's the great thing about the size. And there's several things that the scale of Therme allows us to do. But if you go to one in Erding, there's I think over 30 different saunas, and each one is different. And so, different people gravitate to different ones. You're probably going to go to one that more appeals, probably a little hotter. That's not going to appeal to the newcomers or people that are just trying it, sort of the sauna tourists. You're probably going to be in there with the more dedicated people. And so, and I think I guess the reason I think of rather than it like looking like Disneyland, to me it's more about the scale, not the look and feel. I think some of them we would want to integrate art, but I think some of them we want to leave as just a traditional experience, because I think sometimes you don't need to have your senses overloaded more. You want to just experience that physical sensation, and not be challenged further. So I think it's the variety, and that's really what makes Therme so different, is the scale. So you can have so many, and the great thing about it is, so you could come with your family and different family members. Maybe your grandparents want to go in more of the steam room with the kids. Different people that have never been to sauna can do one, while you can find one that's right for you.
Well, my 60 almost 70-year-old Cambodian mother-in-law is a beast in the heat, way more than I am.
Good point.
So, and I have to ask for our
point.
listeners, like, how hot, like the hot ones, how hot do they get? Are
Yep.
Can you put steam on the water? What's it like in that?
Yeah.
I mean, steam on the rocks.
Yeah, there's again, they're sort of all different, and I think that's the beauty of it. Some of them are, and are Adam. The one thing that I haven't, like, I know in Bucharest right now, you can't put water on the rocks, but I think that's something they're looking to change on the addition, so you can sort of, that allows you to sort of, what I think of, customize it almost.
Exactly. No, it's something I've been thinking about a lot. It's almost like, there's the ice bucket that you can pull and do that instant ice bucket experience. I think there are probably some pretty cool technologies we can think about that would minimize the danger of someone who's not familiar with doing a Lolu and putting the water on the rocks and not injuring themselves. I actually went to an amazing sauna a few weeks ago in San Francisco. It was an old Finnish sauna in Berkeley, and it was from the 1920s. It was incredible. And you went inside the sauna, and there was this whole contraption with tugs and pulleys to put the steam and also to trigger the cold plunge or the cold shower. So there's all sorts of like interesting self-serve technologies, I think, that we could explore that would allow people to, put the steam at their discretion without obviously generating the safety risk that I think is significant for people who aren't familiar with that.
So, yeah, what was the place in Berkeley called? I'm curious.
Albany Sauna. Sauna. Definitely worth checking out. It was an interesting design because it was a huge central oven in the middle of this building, and then 4 saunas that fed off of it. So it was one oven for 4 different saunas. It was very cool. The other thing I was going to say in terms of finding the sauna that's right for you is we're open from 10 a.m. until 11 p.m. and sometimes even midnight. So if you go during a weekday morning or before 3 p.m., you will find that vibe. And our European facilities actually have discounted pricing for seniors weekday mornings. And so the atmosphere when you go in the morning in Therme it's incredible. It's like a sort of senior center of people having a drink and hanging out in the sauna. And then, as the day goes on, the demographic gets younger and younger. And I think by self-selection, by 9 p.m., is probably an average age of 30. So it really shifts over time. And I think the same sauna can have a totally different vibe, morning, evening, week, or weekend.
Well, I'll dye the rest of my hair all the way white, and then I'll sneak in the morning.
Yeah. Are they all individually different, these places, or are they like Costco? So whenever you go to a Costco, you basically know where the lumber is and where the nails are. Is this how do they function?
Adam, or do you want me to take it?
Why don't you go and I'll build on it?
Yeah. So I mean, the rough structure is similar. There's the area that's more for families. There's the areas for adults, and then there's the area with more saunas. But I think one of the things we're really interested in doing is keep evolving the look and feel. And so it would be familiar, but it wouldn't be like a Costco where when you're inside, you don't know if you're in Chicago or Dallas. And I think we also want to look what kind of local variations do we want to bring in. One of the things, we're talking about opening a facility in Texas. And if you talk to anyone in Texas, one of the things they want is a lazy river. That's something that's part of, I grew up in Texas. It was part of my childhood. So thinking, how could we do a lazy river in a different way that hasn't been done before? So I guess the answer to your question is that they'll be familiar, but I think we want them to look and feel different and feel like the Therme in your own city.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is they're incredibly integrated into their landscape. So, it's predominantly a glass enclosed environment. So you see your surroundings. And that's one of the things that we're really excited about, is how to use that to create a sense of really being in the city, but also being in this sort of environment of well-being and relaxation. That is not, you go inside and you could be anywhere in the world. It'll be very situated in that way, I think.
Do you have any plans for smaller projects in North America, or will they primarily be the 10 big ones?
Yeah, not right now. The business model is really fundamentally premised on scale, and that's what enables us to deliver a low price point. And in my view, that's also one of the joys of the experience, is this highly communal, collective experience, kind of like going to a festival or going to a museum. It's about that experience with large numbers of people. A pleasant experience, because also people are behaving well and but it is that sense of a city scale infrastructure. And so it needs that scale. And I think that's also what allows us to engage different ages, from a 5-year-old to an 85-year-old. Everyone can feel at home there. And that's, it's what I was saying earlier in the conversation, that we want to encourage the small and the medium-sized bathing sector to grow and to exist and to be healthy, and we're not going to compete there. That's not our niche.
And then education is huge, especially here in North America. We're constantly introducing our friends and family to sauna. We just won't shut up about it. They're probably tired of it, but when they first come, when they're first experiencing that, it's walking them through the whole process. How do you plan on handling that for North Americans who might wander in and not have a clue? Are there educational, is there an educational track or materials that might guide them?
Great question. We already have a really robust customer experience system, where we have staff on the floor of Therme who are constantly monitoring and seeing, does anyone seem confused, helping people understand maybe the sequence to do a sauna in. And then, because we have this programming, basically every other hour, every 3 hours in each sauna, there's aufguss masters who come in. And I think Therme has done a very good job. It's almost like at the beginning of a flight, you get like a safety orientation. So before the aufguss begins, there's a lot of discussion of how long should you be there? Where should you sit? When should you leave? Make sure you go hydrate afterwards. Make sure you go to the terrace afterwards. So there's a lot of orientation, but it's done in a friendly way, not in an intimidating way, or trying to make people feel like they're in some strange subculture that, if they do it this way, not that way, they'll be kicked out. But I think that's one of the opportunities of this big environment as well, is we can have so many different kinds of offerings. We have a lot of saunas that aren't that hot. So for people who are coming for the first time, they'll certainly gravitate towards that. And then our cold experiences are not that cold, so it's somewhat more accessible. And I think that probably is something that we'll retain a commitment to, is if you want to do the super ice plunge, that won't be Therme. That's going to be your sort of health club, cold plunge location. And if you want the super hot sauna, that's going to be your banya, around the corner, probably not Therme. But no, Robbie, if you have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So if just hypothetically, if a Finnish tourist ends up in one of the Therme's locations in North America, can he or she buy a couple of lager beers and a sausage? Is that doable?
Yes. I can't tell you exactly what it'll be, but you'll definitely be able to get a beer.
Okay, well then it's and it's like one more thing which is crucial for like,
I don't know about the cigar. I don't know about.
Oh yeah. That's totally fine. It's like, but I smoke only when I sauna. When I'm doing sauna, so it's like that's not what I do every day. I did on Thursday. I did smoke a cigar and had a 3-hour sauna session. So, but I'm good now. But yeah, so it's like that's it's funny how it's that way, and Adam is going to experience that soon on your upcoming trip to Finland. But it's sausage is mandatory. It's mandatory. You have to have sausage. Yeah. It doesn't work. And then also what you need is somebody has to be. Well, aufguss is different, but somebody has to be able to control the steam. So it's like steam has to be, and this is where many locations don't like come up to the Finnish standards. It's just like, because that steam is so essential, and as we know, most of the saunas in America, there's like absolutely no water on the rocks. They're like huge signs. So that's like that kind of the discussion ends right there.
I think one of the things that, in my journey of sauna has been a big revelation is I really, when I was growing up, perceived going to a sauna as an incredibly passive experience. You go in, you sit in a quiet room, and you stare at the wall. And I think one of the things that has been so revelatory is just how interactive and how much agency you have when you go in a sauna, controlling the steam, controlling the heat. One of my favorite bathing experiences is in a Russian wet sauna, in a banya, where you can take the bucket and pour it over yourself in the sauna, so you don't even have to go to the plunge. You do it all in the same space. And I think when I've been introducing friends to sauna experiences, that's one of the things that really converts them, is like, oh, it's fun. It's kind of like choose your own adventure, in the sauna, you control your journey. And, with aufguss, you're also sort of on a journey being guided by someone. And it makes it just such a more engaging experience. And I think once you understand that, then you're much better able to, enjoy maybe the passive experience, because there's the potential for it to be much more exciting, and you've deliberately chosen for that contemplative, meditative experience, which is also essential.
Yeah, that's so well said, tying it back to the infrared that we discussed earlier. If you go experience an infrared somewhere for 45 minutes, and then you compare that to what you just described, your senses are engaged in so many ways, the sausage, the beer, the pouring the water on your head, the smells, the steam, the company. It's a different universe of experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the only option you get in an infrared, cabin is on or off. I mean, those are your options. And by tailoring it and being able to do all the things that you want to do, that's what people really want. They want a custom experience that isn't necessarily, too excessive, where, hey, I can't get at it. I want this to feel luxury, but I want it to be tailored to me too. But I don't want to break the bank. It sounds like, guys are offering that, which is awesome. Do you have, are you guys planning on having, the traditional, drain in the floor? Are you going to be able to pour a bucket of water over your head in your saunas?
We don't currently have that, but I will be strongly advocating for the bucket on the head. The issue is, with the volume of customers that we have, it's just a different business. When there's saunas with 50, 60, 70 people, if everyone's choosing their own adventure, it could quickly turn into chaos. So there's, I think what Therme has done very well is developing systems and protocols for managing large numbers of people moving through sauna environments, doing so in a way that's safe and also fun. And
I don't think we're ever going to replace like the Russian baths. I think I'm still going to want to go to the Russian baths sometime, because that's a different experience. There's something about somewhere that's been there, that has a regulars that are there. So, and that's one of the things I think we're not looking to take over for the local sauna. You know, we want to create a bigger market, and that's one of the things. Going back to Adam's point about the Roman baths, you know, I sort of thought there was just one big Roman bath in Rome, but there were multiple giant Roman baths, Caracalla, Diocletian, and then thousands of other baths throughout Rome. And so I think the market, we are just at the very tip of the market. And so what I hope, you know, cities have is you have a Therme, you know, where you can experiment with 30 different saunas, but then you go back home to your neighborhood or to your own city and you find what's your local place that, you know, you want to go back to more regularly.
I mean, for me, the corollary that I've always felt, and I'm a big fan of electronic music, is in the US, sort of European club culture was really not popular until probably about 15 years ago. And one of the things that tipped the scales was very large, pretty commercial festivals that began catering to a much, much bigger customer base than small techno clubs and house clubs. And when that culture took off of sort of the mass market electronic music scene, that then rippled down and created an enormous underground scene. And so there was, I think, you know, the mass market offering helped grow the market for the smaller, more experimental offerings. And I think there's a corollary here. There's also, you know, that happened with coffee culture, I think. It happened with yoga to some extent. And I think with bathing, I think we'll see something similar because the market is untapped and is much, much bigger, I think, than people realize. And the conversion that you can have of someone who's skeptical to someone who's a diehard addict happens very quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think it takes many bathing experiences for people to say, "Oh my goodness, why haven't I been doing this my whole life?" You know.
There is definitely, you know, there's this boom now happening even here in North America right now, and people are discovering the real sauna more and more. But again, coming back to the fact that that we need these benchmarks. We need these benchmarks because I'm not naming this chain of gyms around the U.S. Very big one, starts with a Y. But like our local place, I'm not naming where I am right now, but I opened the sauna door once. There's a, you know, you get that smell of, you know, sweat, and then you close the door. You don't even go in, and you're done. So it's like that's the benchmark that we have, unfortunately, right now. So it's just like, you know, there's not even like even though the sauna would be perfect to start with, but many of these locations don't actually maintain, you know, what they have. So there's a lot to be, you know, wished. But anyway, so this is it's an awesome step. So where are the saunas? I mean, the Therme is going to be. Have you announced that yet?
No, we're not ready to announce a location. We do have an agreement with the mayor of DC to find a location next year, so that's exciting. I think Texas, though, that'll be one of the states we're in first. We are also committed to being here in New York, you know, where Adam and I live. Adam, what are some other cities that you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, when we launched Therme U.S, which was about 2 years ago, we expressed the commitment to rolling out the concept nationwide. So we're looking at LA, we're looking, you know, in the South, Atlanta, Houston, Dallas. We're looking on the coasts, DC, New York. I mean, ultimately, we believe any large metropolitan area can support a Therme, and the opportunity is very big. However, because the projects are very big, the timelines, you know, move at a particular pace, you know, because this is really about building a project on the scale of a stadium, and that does not happen overnight. And because we're a new kind of use, a new kind of attraction that, you know, many people are not familiar with, there's an education piece that goes along with it. One thing I would say is, you know, in our discussions with city governments, as well as, you know, potential business partners and so forth, once they understand the sort of scale of what we're doing and the accessibility, there's a very, very quick shift to, you know, a high degree of enthusiasm and interest. And I think especially in today's world where, you know, e-commerce has made shopping, you know, in physical places, you know, less viable, and where offices are, you know, many of them empty because of remote work, there's a huge interest, both public and private sectors looking for new kinds of uses that can animate downtowns and cities. And in many ways, we are the original use for the urban core. You know, it's kind of like bringing back the idea of bathhouses, which actually until, you know, the early 20th century were a major part of what you did in cities was collective bathing. And then with the rise of private plumbing and bathrooms, you know, we kind of lost that. But in the bigger arc of human history, especially in cities, these kinds of large-scale wellness infrastructures were very common.
What might be, like my questions quite often might be a stupid question, but what kind of business partners are you looking for? What like catering, whatever, food, or like, you know, what's your typical, like in say DC, what kind of business partners?
Well, in terms of our experience, that is all delivered in-house. So we deliver our own food and beverage, we deliver our own, you know, wellness programming, we do a lot of our own design and engineering. I think when I said business partners, it's more, you know, potential landowners, people who like from, you know, where people maybe 15 years ago wanted to put a shopping mall or wanted to put a movie, you know, multiplex. In many ways, the Therme, I think, is the, you know, 2023 equivalent, especially in this digital world where so many kinds of experiences are vulnerable to being disrupted and becoming an app. You know, bathing can literally never become an app, you know. At least I hope not.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna have to go. I gotta I negotiated with my husband to babysit the kids for a little while I do this, but
so let's wrap this up. Any final thoughts, questions, points?
No, I think thank you all for doing what you've done to sort of preserve this tradition and make sure that that sort of authentic experience that is so special, you know, that we can keep building on. So I think I know Adam and I, we're really grateful for what y'all do.
There's a mutual interest for sure.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for being on the show today. You know, I learned a lot, and it's exciting to, you know, to hear from other larger scale businesses that are interested in preserving and making those things accessible that I like. So it's an easy sell for me.
Good.
Well,
thanks, guys.
Good to meet you guys.
On opening day, we'll look forward to seeing you there.
Okay.
Excellent. I'll be first in line.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.